And I'm a former prosecutor myself, and I can tell you some of the public defenders that I was up against were more zealous and more avid advocates for their clients than some of the private attorneys, because they're not doing it for the money, right? They're doing it for the ability to help people who are indigent and may not be able to afford a private attorney. And you mentioned the weapons training, and Lisa, I'm going to go to you and ask your opinion about that. You're a former SWAT team member, law enforcement. I would imagine you have some weapons training experience. Do you think that Edgecomb may have hurt himself in his testimony about his experience with weapons training? Was the prosecution able to capitalize that on recross?
100% yes. I didn't expect that to come out. And how was that going to benefit him to say that he had weapons training when he said the gun kind of just went off? Because we know there's a trigger pull. There's a certain amount of pounds of pressure that need to be suppressed in order for a weapon to go off. And if you have training, you're even more cognizant of how much pressure you need to have on that weapon. So when the prosecution came back and made that statement, you had that training, you are trained to hit a target. And the fact that he was struck in the head, Mr. Cleereman, shows you that the intention was to hit and strike somebody in the head because of that training. Very unfortunate that that came out for the defense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we are left with somewhat of a muddy defense now based on this testimony and also the cross-examination. Okay, so that's direct testimony by Theodore Edgecomb as to the moments leading up to the shooting of Jason Cleereman. And, I'm going to bring in our guest to break this down. And particularly so, Lisa, I want to talk to you about this because we were chatting about something interesting that you brought up during the break. And that was the testimony that we heard earlier about the stance that Theodore Edgecomb said Cleereman was in as he approached him, and the notion and this theory of whether he had a object, a knife in his hand, which factored into Theodore's mind as he took certain actions and shooting. What are your thoughts about that stance? Does it ring true, and is it supporting the defense theory?
It's not supporting the theory. When the prosecutor asked him 2 times and even repeated the stance and went into this position, boxer stance, and he said, yes, clenched fists, and the defendant went up and put his hands in this position. If somebody has a knife or an object and it's alleged that they had a knife, this is a letter opener, how would they be holding it? They would be holding it in a position where it would be lowered. One fist wouldn't be up. It would be in a position like this, and it would be in a lower stance. Because you're not coming at somebody in fist position with a weapon, a knife like that, and even turned over in the other direction if somebody's going to go ahead and try to hit you with that. So he kept saying there could have been an item. I don't know if there was an item, so I don't think it's holding any water for him.
Okay, so that was Theodore Edgecomb getting emotional on the stand while talking about his daughter. Let's bring in my great guest as we wrap up the show shortly. I want to get your sort of thoughts, your last takes. What do you think? So, Lisa, I'm going to jump back. I know we just saw that clip, but I want to talk about John Black's testimony real quick. Lisa, what do you think about that testimony? It really wasn't addressing this particular incident, sort of talked about these abstract notions. What do you think? Was it effective for the defense?
I do think it was effective, and I think it was important to show that because perspective is everything. Even with police officers who wear body cams, a body cam is positioned in the center of the universe and in the uniform. And look at the difference between what the eye sees forward and the body cam sees forward. And if it's positioned over here, it's completely different. And we were told, according to Evangelina, that he was looking at it. Edgecomb was staring at her the entire time with these cold, dark eyes. So that piece of the puzzle of what his visual was at that moment was important, and I think John Black was able to demonstrate that.
Lisa, I'm sorry to cut you off. We have to wrap up the show, but stay tuned here at Law and Crime and log on to the website for more trial coverage of the Edgecomb trial.